When the Terran ship Vanguard was torn apart by enemy fire near the red world of Carthos Prime, only one man survived: Lieutenant Elias Monroe. The ship had been his second home, his family of stars and steel. Now it was nothing but burning debris scattered across orbit. Elias didn't even remember the explosion clearly, just a flash, a roar, and then the endless silence of space. He woke to the cold hum of alien machinery. The light above him flickered a sickly blue, reflecting off metal walls that curved like the inside of a beast. His body ached. His mouth was dry, and the air smelled of ozone and iron. Chains of polished steel bound his wrists. When he looked around, he realized he was inside a cell built not by humans, but by something far more advanced. Moments later, the sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Elias tensed. The door slid open with a hiss, and a tall figure stepped in. For a second, his mind refused to believe what his eyes were seeing. She was not human. Her skin shimmered like pale silver under the dim light, and her armor looked alive, black plates shifting slightly with every movement. Her eyes glowed faintly, reflecting power and intelligence. Her face was sharp and regal, beautiful in a terrifying way. She stood almost 7 feet tall, and her presence filled the entire room like a storm contained in flesh. "You are the human," she said. Her voice was calm, deep, and oddly melodic, the kind that carried authority without needing to shout. Elias swallowed hard. "I guess that makes you not human." The corners of her mouth curved slightly. Not a full smile, but something close. "Your kind is brave," she said. "Or foolish. Maybe both," Elias muttered. He had no weapon, no hope of escape, yet something in him refused to bow. His heart raced, but his eyes didn't waver. She studied him for a long moment, as if weighing the worth of his soul. Then she turned slightly and spoke a few words in her language, harsh and beautiful, like thunder through crystal. The guards behind her saluted and left the room, leaving only the two of them. "What will you do to me?" Elias asked, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. Her silver gaze met his. "That depends. Are you useful? Or only curious?" He frowned. "I was an engineer. I fix things. Ships, systems. Sometimes people." "People?" she repeated, tilting her head slightly. "Strange. Humans fix others even when they cannot fix themselves." Elias wasn't sure how to reply to that. There was sadness behind her words, something he didn't expect from a warlord of another species. After a moment, she stepped closer. He could feel the temperature drop, like the air itself bowed to her presence. Her eyes searched his face carefully. "You are not afraid." "I am," he admitted quietly, "just not showing it." This time she did smile, a real faint smile that made her seem almost human. "Courage is not the absence of fear," she said. "It is walking through it." He blinked, surprised. "Who taught you that?" "My mother," she replied, and for the first time her voice softened. Before war took her, silence fell between them, a strange silence, heavy but not hostile. Elias realized that she was more than a commander. There was depth in her, a loneliness she carried like armor. Finally, she turned to leave, but before exiting, she said, "You will not be harmed." "You are under my command now." He frowned. "Under your command? You mean a prisoner?" She paused at the doorway, her back to him. "No," she said quietly. "You are claimed." The word echoed in his mind long after she was gone. Claimed? What did that even mean to her kind? He didn't understand it, but something about the way she said it made his heart twist with confusion and curiosity. Later, as he lay on the cold metal floor staring at the strange patterns on the ceiling, he couldn't stop thinking about her voice. Calm, proud, and full of something unspoken. He had seen death in her eyes, but also life. He had seen power, but also pain. He didn't know her name yet, but somehow he felt that their fates had already been tied together from the moment she looked at him. Somewhere deep inside, Elias sensed that this was not just captivity. It was the beginning of something far more dangerous. And in that alien ship, surrounded by enemies and darkness, he felt the faintest spark, not of fear, but of connection. The universe had torn everything he knew apart, only to give him her. Elias never thought he'd see another sunrise, but the alien ship had its own way of marking time. Every 12 cycles, the lights dimmed and brightened again, their version of day and night. Days passed, but he was not left alone. Food was brought to him. Strange, glowing fruits and liquid that tasted like metal and honey. No one spoke to him except her. Captain Sarath Kael'thar, that was her name. He learned it when a young alien guard whispered it in fear one morning. Everyone aboard the ship feared her, respected her, and obeyed her without question. She was the iron flame of the Dominion fleet, a name spoken with both pride and terror. Yet when she came to see him, she didn't look like a monster or a conqueror. She looked curious. Are you adapting? She asked one day as she stood before his cell. As much as anyone can adapt to being kidnapped by a 7-foot alien, Elias replied dryly. For a moment, he thought he saw a flicker of amusement in her glowing eyes. You are not a typical prisoner, she said. Is that good or bad? That remains to be seen. She motioned for the guards to open the cell. They hesitated, glancing at her as if she'd lost her mind. She gave a single cold look and they obeyed instantly. The metal door slid open with a hiss and Elias stepped out, his heart pounding. Walk with me, she ordered. He followed her down the long metallic corridors. The ship felt alive. Every surface hummed faintly, every wall shimmered with flowing light. Alien symbols moved across panels like breathing patterns. He could feel hundreds of eyes watching him from every direction. Where are we going? He asked. To my observation deck, she said. I wish to see the human stars. They reached a large dome-shaped room. The walls were transparent, showing the endless stretch of space. Blue nebula clouds drifted outside, glowing softly in the dark. Elias stood frozen. The view was breathtaking. It's beautiful, he whispered. Sarath looked at him, her expression unreadable. You humans see beauty even in emptiness. That is why your kind survives, he turned to her. You sound like you admire us. I study you, she said simply. Your courage, your stubbornness, your need to protect even when you have no power. He smiled faintly. Sounds like you've been watching us for a while. I have. She took a step closer. I claimed you not as a trophy, but as a sign, Elias frowned. A sign of what? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she extended her hand. Long fingers tipped with metallic claws, elegant yet dangerous. Among my people, she said softly, when a warrior claims another, it means they see something sacred in them, something they must guard, even at the cost of their own honor. He stared at her hand, unsure if it was a gesture of peace or power. And you think I'm sacred? Her lips curved faintly. You faced death and spoke to me without trembling. That is rare, even among Zorans. So I'm your, what, pet? Companion? Her eyes flashed briefly. Do not mock the bond, human. It is not slavery. It is a vow. He looked away, suddenly unsure how to feel. He wanted to be angry, to remind her that he was a soldier, not something to be claimed. But something in her voice stopped him. There was no mockery, no arrogance, just truth. She walked to the glass wall, staring into the stars. Do you know what your people call us? She asked quietly. Enemies. And yet you stand beside one now, she said, unarmed, alive. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. You could have killed me. So why didn't you? Sarath turned slowly, her silver eyes glowing brighter. Because when I saw you, I saw something I lost long ago. Someone who refuses to bow. Her words hit deeper than he expected. There was loneliness in her voice, a shadow of something broken. I don't belong here, he said softly. You belong where fate places you, she replied, and fate placed you with me. He met her gaze, confused and fascinated. There was strength in her, yes, but also warmth hidden beneath all that armor. He didn't know what to call it. Respect, connection, or something more. When she finally turned to leave, she said one last thing that would echo in his mind for nights to come. From this moment you walk under my protection. None shall harm you, not even the High Command. You are claimed by Sarath Kael'thar, captain of the Iron Flame. Elias stood alone after she left, staring at the stars outside the glass. He didn't understand why her words made his heart beat faster. He wasn't sure if he was safe, or if he had just stepped into something far more dangerous than war itself. And deep down he knew one truth. Whatever this strange bond was, it had already begun to change them both. Weeks passed aboard the Ziran dreadnought, and Elias slowly began to understand the strange rhythm of life among the stars. What had started as captivity began to feel like something different, something uncertain but alive. He was still a prisoner, yes, but Captain Sareth Kael'thar treated him unlike anyone else on the ship. She didn't lock him away anymore. Instead, she allowed him to walk freely through certain parts of the ship, always under the careful eyes of her guards. Elias spent his days helping repair damaged systems, mapping Terran frequencies and observing the alien technology that both terrified and fascinated him. The crew didn't like it. Every alien he passed glared with disgust. They whispered behind his back in their sharp electric language. "The captain has gone soft," one hissed. "She listens to the human too much," but Sarath didn't care. Every evening she would summon him to her quarters, a wide chamber filled with glowing crystals and ancient banners. There they would talk, sometimes about war, sometimes about home. Elias would tell her about the blue oceans of Earth, about music, about laughter. Sarath would listen in silence, her silver eyes softening in a way no one else had probably ever seen. And then she would speak of her world. Zera, a planet of endless deserts and burning skies. She told him how her people were born into war, raised to fight until death, and taught that emotion was weakness. "You laugh too easily," she said once, studying him as he tried to fix a cracked energy module. "That's how humans survive," Elias replied, smiling faintly. "We find reasons to smile even when everything's broken." She tilted her head. "Strange creatures. You bleed and still find joy?" He glanced up at her. "Maybe that's what keeps us human." Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, something unspoken passed between them. Fragile, warm, and forbidden. But not everyone aboard the ship approved of this growing bond. One day, while Elias worked near the lower decks, 2 Zoran soldiers cornered him. Their armor gleamed darkly in the corridor light. "You do not belong here, Terran," one snarled. "You poisoned the captain's mind." Elias didn't back away. Then maybe her mind needed a little poison. The words barely left his mouth before a heavy fist slammed into his stomach. He fell to his knees, gasping. Another strike followed, splitting his lip. The soldiers laughed, circling him like predators. But before they could land another blow, a deep, commanding voice sliced through the air. "Enough." The laughter died instantly. The soldiers froze. Sarath stood at the end of the corridor, her armor glowing faintly from within. Her eyes burned like molten silver. She walked toward them slowly, every step filled with restrained fury. "Who dares touch what is mine?" she said, her voice low but filled with danger. The soldiers bowed instantly, their hands trembling. "Captain, we meant no disrespect. You disobeyed my order," she said coldly, "and you touched my claim. That is death." Elias watched, stunned, as her energy blade ignited with a hiss, a sword of light and fire. But before she could strike, he shouted, "Wait!" "Sareth, don't!" Her head snapped toward him. For a second, he saw the war inside her, duty versus mercy. Then she lowered her blade. "Leave," she ordered the soldiers, "and pray I never see you again." They ran. Elias leaned against the wall, blood on his chin. Sarath approached him slowly. "You are hurt," she said softly. "I've been worse," he muttered, wiping his mouth. Her clawed hand reached out, brushing gently against the bruise on his jaw. Her touch was cold but careful, protective. "You should have called for me," she said quietly. "I didn't want to be your problem," he replied. Her eyes met his, glowing faintly in the dim light. "You are not my problem, Elias Monroe. You are my heart's defiance," he blinked, his breath catching. "You're what?" She looked away. "Among my kind, when a warrior claims someone, it is more than protection. It is a bond of the soul." He didn't know what to say. His heart pounded. The air between them felt heavier, charged with something impossible. That night, alone in his quarters, Elias couldn't sleep. He kept replaying her words. "You are my heart's defiance." What did it mean to her? To them? Was he still her prisoner? Or had they both become trapped in something far deeper? Something neither of their worlds would ever understand. And in the silence of the alien ship drifting between the stars, Elias realized something terrifyingly beautiful. He was no longer afraid of her. He was afraid of losing her. Days turned into weeks, and the atmosphere aboard the dreadnought began to change. Whispers followed Elias everywhere he went. Soldiers looked away when he passed, some out of fear, others out of disgust. The human had become a symbol of defiance, not just for himself but for their captain too. Captain Sareth Kael'thar no longer hid her actions. She treated Elias as her equal, not her possession. He dined beside her, advised her in strategy meetings, and even stood on the bridge when they faced enemy fleets. No one dared to question her openly, but everyone felt the tension. The Dominion High Command, however, did not stay silent for long. One morning, Sereth received a transmission marked with the highest level of command. The holographic seal burned crimson as it opened. A figure appeared on an elder Zeran with deep silver scars across his face. His voice echoed with authority. "Captain Serath Kelthar," the hologram said. "We are aware you have taken a human from the Terran ship Vanguard. Return the specimen immediately to the Dominion Research Council. He is classified as a threat to national order." Elias stood behind her as she listened, his fists clenched. The way the alien spoke, calling him a specimen, made his blood boil. Sereth's voice was steady, but her eyes darkened. "He is under my protection. He is not to be harmed. You dare question the council?" the elder hissed. "Your loyalty is fading, Captain. Do not let emotion weaken your duty." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving a heavy silence behind. Elias stepped forward. "They want me dead, don't they? They want to dissect you," she said coldly. "They fear what they don't understand." He crossed his arms, forcing a shaky laugh. "Guess that's not too different from humans." Serath didn't smile. Her expression was carved with conflict. "If I refuse their order, they will brand me a traitor. My crew will be hunted. My family name will be erased." Elias stared at her. "And if you obey?" Her gaze met his. "You die." The words hung in the air like a blade between them. Neither spoke for a long time. The hum of the ship filled the silence, steady like a heartbeat trying to remind them they were both still alive. Finally, Elias said softly, "Then do it." She turned sharply. "What? Follow your orders. Give them what they want. I don't want to be the reason you lose everything." Her silver eyes flared with sudden anger. "You think I would trade your life for my honor?" "I think you care too much about me," he whispered. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "And is that so wrong?" He couldn't answer. He saw the pain in her eyes, the kind of pain that came from being torn in two directions. She was a warrior bound by duty, and yet for the first time in her life her heart was stronger than her orders. That night, the ship was silent. The stars outside glimmered like tiny ghosts watching. Sereth sat alone in her quarters, staring at the message again and again. Every word felt like a chain tightening around her. When Elias entered quietly, she didn't turn. "They will come for us," she said softly. 3 dreadnoughts, maybe more. "Then run," he said. Her head turned sharply. "Run?" "Yes," he said. "You told me once that fate decides where we belong. Maybe fate wants you to choose for yourself now." For the first time, Sereth looked uncertain. "Running means betraying everything I've fought for." "Maybe it means fighting for something else," he said gently. Their eyes met, and in that moment, something shifted. The warrior in her heart bowed to the woman beneath the armor. Without another word, Serath stood and walked to the control panel. She entered a series of commands. The ship's engines roared to life. Elias frowned. "What are you doing?" "Erasing the transmission," she said, "and changing our course." "To where?" "Anywhere the Dominion cannot reach us." Elias felt his chest tighten. "You'll be branded a traitor." Her voice softened. "Then I will be a traitor who saved what mattered most." The ship shuddered as it broke through the starlit silence, turning away from the Dominion's path. The stars ahead looked brighter, free, untamed, endless. Elias stood beside her as alarms began to ring across the ship. The crew shouted in panic, realizing what their captain had done. But Serath didn't flinch. Her eyes stayed on the stars. "You once asked me why I claimed you," she said, her voice calm and steady. "Now you have your answer. I claimed you because you reminded me what it means to feel alive." Elias looked at her, the strongest being he had ever met, and saw something beautiful. Not power, not dominance, but love. And as the ship raced into the unknown, chased by the fury of an empire, Elias realized the truth he could no longer deny. He wasn't her prisoner anymore. He was her choice. The iron flame tore through the dark void like a wounded beast running from a storm. Behind it, 3 Dominion dreadnoughts followed, massive, deadly, and relentless. The stars themselves seemed to tremble as the chase began. Inside the ship, alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the corridors, and every soldier scrambled to stations. Sarath stood tall on the command deck, her armor glowing faintly under the crimson light. Her calm voice cut through the chaos. "Activate shield grid. Divert auxiliary power to engines," she ordered. The crew obeyed without hesitation, though fear filled their faces. Everyone knew what this meant. Their captain had defied the Dominion. They were outlaws now. Elias stood beside her, his heart pounding. He had never seen her like this, not just a commander, but a force of nature. Her silver eyes burned with determination, yet behind that fire he saw something else. Sorrow. "They're closing in," he said, watching the radar. 3 ships, all armed. "I know," she replied softly. "They will not stop until one of us is dust." The ship shuddered as the first blast hit. Energy flared across the shields, making the air vibrate. Crew members shouted updates, their voices trembling. Elias grabbed the console to steady himself. "We can't keep taking hits like this." "Then we do not take them," Sarath said. "We strike back." Her fingers danced over the control board. The dreadnought's side cannons lit up, releasing blue fire into the blackness. Explosions rippled across space as one of the pursuing ships took damage. Elias couldn't help but stare. She fought like a storm given flesh. Every command she gave carried precision, courage, and pain. But the battle was not in their favor. The Dominion had numbers and they had power. "Shields down to 30%, shouted one officer. Elias looked at Sarath. "We need to escape into an asteroid field or something. Anything to break their line of sight." "There is one nearby," she said, scanning the star map. "But if we go there, the ship's hull might not survive the pressure." He placed a hand on her arm. "We'll survive if we stick together. Trust me." For a second she looked at him. Truly looked. Then she nodded. "Helm, change course. Enter the field." The ship plunged into a dense field of glowing asteroids, each one spinning like a burning planet. Chunks of rock scraped the shields, sending sparks through the hull. The Dominion ships followed, firing blindly. Inside the chaos, Elias worked the weapon systems. "Got them," he yelled, launching a burst of plasma torpedoes. One Dominion cruiser exploded, its debris lighting up the void like fireworks. Sarath gave a fierce smile. "Well done, human. Didn't think I'd ever make an alien captain proud," he said with a breathless laugh. But the moment was short-lived. Another blast struck their rear engines. The ship jolted violently and the bridge filled with smoke. "Engine 2 offline," cried a technician. Elias coughed, gripping the console. "We can't outrun them much longer." Sarath's expression hardened. "Then we end it here. What are you planning?" he asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she touched her communicator. "All crew, prepare for evacuation." "That is an order." "Evacuation?" Elias shouted. "What about you?" "I will hold them off," she said quietly. "The iron flame cannot be taken. I will destroy the ship before I let them use it against my people." "No," he said firmly, stepping in front of her. "You're not doing this alone." Her eyes softened, and for a moment all the strength in her seemed to melt into sadness. "Elias, you have already given me more than I deserve. You gave me peace." He shook his head. "You think I can live with myself knowing you died for me?" "This is my duty," she said. "My destiny." "Then let me share it," he whispered. For a long moment, they just stood there, human and alien, surrounded by fire and chaos, 2 hearts beating as one against the whole universe. Finally, Sarath spoke, her voice breaking. "You were supposed to be my weakness, but now I see how you were my strength." Outside, the last Dominion ship drew closer, charging its main cannon. The dreadnought's systems flickered, the hull groaning under the pressure. Sarath took one final breath. "Power all energy to the forward shields and weapons," she ordered. "We fight until the stars fall." And as the iron flame surged forward, lights blazing like a dying sun, Elias stood beside her, ready to face the end. He didn't feel fear anymore, only love. Fierce and endless, because in that moment, he understood something she had known all along. Sometimes to be truly free, you must be willing to burn for what you love. The iron flame was burning. Smoke filled the corridors, sparks flew from broken wires, and the once proud ship groaned like a dying beast. Outside, the Dominion dreadnought loomed larger, its weapon systems glowing with deadly light. The stars themselves seemed to fade, as if the universe was holding its breath. Sarath stood at the main console, her armor cracked and her breathing heavy. Her silver skin was marked with burns, and yet her eyes, those fierce, determined eyes, were still unbroken. Elias stumbled beside her, trying to steady himself. "Shields are gone," he said hoarsely. "One more hit and we're done." "I know," she whispered. "But if I can reach the reactor controls, I can overload them. The explosion will take their ship with us." Her voice was calm, but Elias heard the pain beneath it. He knew what that meant. There would be no escape for her. He grabbed her arm. "No, there has to be another way." "There is none," she said softly, looking at him. "If the Dominion captures us, they will use our technology to enslave more worlds. Maybe even Earth. I will not allow that." Her hand brushed his cheek gently, a gesture so human it made his chest ache. "You don't belong in this war, Elias. You should have been safe." He met her gaze, his voice trembling but strong. "Maybe, but you claimed me, remember? You said I was under your protection. So if this is your fight, it's mine too." For the first time, she smiled through the pain. "You foolish, beautiful human." They shared a silence that said everything words couldn't. The kind of silence that lives between two souls who know the end is near but refuse to let go. Then Sarath turned to the crew. "Everyone to escape pods." "That's an order." The crew hesitated. Some shouted protests, others cried quietly. None wanted to leave their captain behind. But they obeyed. One by one, pods launched into the void, glowing like tiny stars against the dark. Elias stayed. When the last pod was gone, Sarath turned to him. "You must go too." He shook his head. "Not without you." "You don't understand," she said, almost pleading now. "The overload sequence, it must be activated manually. The energy pulse will destroy anything within 1,000 meters. If you stay, you'll die." Elias took a step closer. "Then I die with you." Her lips parted as if to argue, but the words never came. For the first time in her life, the mighty Captain Sarath was speechless. She reached up, touching his face again, her fingers trembling. "You were never mine to claim," she whispered. "But somehow you became my heart." Elias smiled faintly. "And you became my home." The ship jolted violently as another blast hit. Warning alarms screamed. Time was running out. Sarath moved to the reactor controls, her hands glowing faintly as she connected to the core's neural link. The system recognized her command authority immediately. "Overload sequence initiated," the computer intoned. 5 minutes to detonation. She winced as the energy pulsed through her veins. The reactor was alive, wild and angry like a storm contained in metal. Elias stood beside her, his hand gripping hers tightly. "You don't have to do it alone." She tried to speak, but her voice broke. Tears, real tears, rolled down her silver cheeks. "I never wanted to lose you," she said. "And you never will." He whispered back. "I'll be right here, always." The ship's lights flickered. The reactor chamber glowed brighter, flooding the room with golden light. Every heartbeat felt like thunder. As the countdown neared its end, Sarath turned her face toward him one last time. Her voice was soft, trembling like a dying star. "Thank you, Elias, for teaching me what freedom feels like." He smiled through his tears. "You set me free too, Captain." Then without another word, she pulled him close. Their foreheads touched, human warmth against alien light. For a moment there was no war, no pain, no universe, only them. The reactor core erupted. A blinding flash consumed everything, light, sound, and sorrow. The explosion spread across the void, swallowing the Dominion dreadnought and turning it into dust among the stars. When the light faded, all that remained was silence. The iron flame was gone. But across the galaxy, in the hearts of those who had escaped, stories of their captain and her human companions spread, stories of courage, of love, of sacrifice. And somewhere, deep in that endless dark, two souls burned together forever, shining brighter than any star. The war ended, but the stars never forgot. Years passed since the iron flame vanished in a blinding storm of light. The Dominion fleet had been crippled that day, its flagship destroyed, its commanders silenced. No one could ever explain how one damaged ship managed to take down a force so vast. Some called it a miracle. Others whispered a name, Sarath, the fallen captain who defied an empire. And beside her name, always, there was another, Elias, the human who refused to leave her side. Among the survivors who escaped that day, their story became more than just memory. It became a legend, a tale of love and sacrifice that spread across galaxies. In every corner of space, from the quiet outposts to the shining stations, someone would tell it in hushed voices. They say the captain was half light, half storm. An old trader once told a group of children in a spaceport tavern. And the human she claimed, he was the spark that made her heart burn brighter. The children listened with wide eyes, imagining a warrior of silver skin and glowing eyes, standing beside a fragile human boy with courage bigger than worlds. But legends often hide truth beneath beauty. In the archives of the Galactic Union, deep in a sealed vault, there was an old recording. It showed a small escape pod drifting through empty space. Inside it, a faint blue light flickered, the last echo of the iron flame. The pod's beacon was weak, almost silent, but it carried 2 life signatures. Both had faded long ago, yet the signal still pulsed, beating softly like a heart that refused to die. Decades later, on a research station orbiting the ruins of the old Dominion sectors, a young scientist named Mara discovered the signal. She was human, curious, stubborn, and full of dreams. When her scanner detected the faint frequency, something about it felt different. It wasn't just a distress call. It was a message. She spent weeks decoding it. The transmission was damaged, fragments of words lost to time. But then one night she heard it, a soft, broken voice. For freedom, for love. The stars remember. Mara sat frozen, her heart pounding. The signal repeated over and over like a ghost refusing to fade. She enhanced the recording and slowly 2 images appeared, a woman with glowing eyes and a man with a tired smile. Serath and Elias, she whispered, realizing what she'd found. The next morning she gathered her team. Together they launched a probe to the signal's origin, a quiet stretch of space filled with debris and ancient metal. There among the remains they found something incredible, a shattered hull, still bearing the insignia of the iron flame. Inside, sealed in the preserved core chamber, 2 forms rested, untouched by time. Serath and Elias side by side, her hand wrapped around his, their faces peaceful. Mara stared through the viewing glass with tears in her eyes. They didn't die, she murmured. They became part of the stars. When word spread, people across galaxies mourned and celebrated. The Galactic Council declared them symbols of unity, proof that love could exist beyond worlds, beyond races, beyond death. A statue was built on New Earth, 2 figures standing together, one human, one alien gazing toward the sky. At its base were the words Serath once spoke before the final battle. Freedom is not given, it is chosen, and love is the choice that makes us free. Years later, a ship named Iron Flame 2 was launched, commanded jointly by humans and aliens. Its mission, peacekeeping and exploration. Its captain, a young woman with eyes of gray light, carried a small pendant found near Serath's last coordinates. She would often look out the viewport, whispering softly, "Guide me, Captain. Watch over us, Elias." And sometimes, when the stars aligned just right, a strange glow appeared in the darkness. 2 lights moving together, side by side. No one could explain it. Scientists called it a cosmic reflection, but the old pilots, the ones who still believed in the impossible, had a different theory. They said it was Serath and Elias, still out there, watching over those who came after them, forever bound by the promise they made in the fire, bound not by chains, but by love. Because when the alien captain claimed the human, the universe thought it was a bond of command, but it became something greater, a bond that even death could not break. And in every corner of the galaxy, where someone dares to fight for love and freedom, their story still burns, not as tragedy, but as proof of what makes humans truly extraordinary. They are fragile, they are mortal, but when they love, they make even stars remember.